Well, good morning. Today I'm very, very pleased to have Dr. Deanne Wesley with us from SciTech. She is the Associate Dean of the iTEC of the Davis iTEC Cybersecurity Center. And Deanne, welcome to SciTech.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Russ.
Deanne, I have just been intrigued with you in the sense of having worked with you and on your advisory committee over this past year, and I thought you would be a great subject for SciTech. So I'd just like to start off with a few general questions, if I could. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how did you come to Foresight Tech?
Oh, well, thank you, Russ. I'll be happy to. So my husband retired. I was working at a university in Michigan, and my husband retired about 15 years ago. And at that time, we said we were going to move to North Carolina. We love North Carolina. We visited often, every break. And so we said we were moving. So I was going to resign from my position there as um, the, was a department coordinator for networking and cyber there as well. And we would move, and then I would look for something else in the state. And so we did that. We found a lovely home, and we moved. And as we were going to closing, as it happens, we passed Forsyth Technical Community College. And I said, "Wow, a technical community college!" And when I got home from the signing, I went on the internet and I looked up Forsyth Tech, and they had all the same things I was doing, teaching same things I was doing. And I said, I'm just going to email the department coordinator and ask if I can come in for an informational meeting and just look around the college, see what they had. And I did that. And the coordinator at that time was Sean Torderick, and he was so accommodating. He was like, "Sure, come in and I'll take you around." And I did that the following week. And um, shortly after that, I met the other staff here, and they offered me a opportunity to teach as an adjunct um, for the Cisco networking program. And so that started my career here at Foresight Tech. And I went from adjunct to full time faculty, and from full time faculty to department coordinator, and then chair of the department, and now the associate dean. So, and I've been with Foresight Tech now for 8 years.
Deanne, that's a wonderful story, and it's really interesting how you just happened to go by the college and note the college. And of course, I remember Sean Todrick very well, and that's just a great coincidence that that happened. We're so excited that you've come to Foresight Tech. You've done so many interesting things since you've been here, and you've progressed the cybersecurity department. But before we go there, I would like to ask you if you could you tell us a little bit about your background? It's especially important, I think, to our students because you are a person of color and
Absolutely.
you are an academic. You have got the highest degree that you can get within academia. That to many, many of our students, you are a role model. Could you just discuss that a little bit? Because that's a tremendous achievement in itself.
Well, thank you, Russ. I would love to talk about that. I'll tell you, um, there is only 1% of African American females in the IT cyber industry, and I'll call those things going forward STEM and STEM fields, right? So there's only 1% of African American women in that field, and overall in the field, there's only 3% of women in general in the field. And so when I started out in the field, every class, every computer class I was in, I was either the only woman or one of one other woman. So it was either one or two, mostly one. It was all men in the class. And I started my career at Marygrove College, which is a liberal arts college in Michigan. It's a private liberal arts college. And at that time, liberal arts colleges, and I was in a business program, you had to take four um, computer science classes. So, I had to, dating myself, I took star programming. It was Unix, it was C++, and I thought, oh my God, these are boring. I hate these. I don't want to be sitting at a computer doing that kind of thing. But I love computers, right? I was in a business program, and at that time, the business had the computer science together, right? And I I was like, I love computers, but I don't want to do this. And then on top of that, Russ, they had to put in insult to injury, and I had to take math and algebra and cal, and I was just dying. I was like, oh no, not algebra. So I struggled in algebra, just like a lot of students today struggle with algebra. And so I took my first algebra class, and I failed the class with a D. I call D failing, okay? Today they want to say D is passing, but it's not passing for the school, it's passing for the student, right? But I failed it with a D, and I was just heartbroken because I'm typically a A and B student. Typically, I don't get C's typically. So I I struggle with that. So someone said, get a tutor and take the class over. And so definitely I was going to get a tutor and take the class over. And mind you, I did have a tutor when I took it the first time. And I said to one of my teachers, my microbiology instructor, great guy. He graduated from a very prestigious university, and he said to me, Deanne, you have a scientific mind. You're great with microbiology. He says, I don't understand why you're struggling with algebra. It must be the format. It's something you didn't catch on early in math. And he said, and I said, I had a tutor. He said, get another tutor, get a different tutor. And so I thought, So I did. I went back to the lab and I asked for a different tutor for math. And this tutor was just awesome. And this particular tutor that was tutoring me at this time became a longtime friend. And he was a microbiologist and by trade. He was, and so he said to me when he said, well, take this problem and show me how you would work this problem. And I took the problem, I started doing the problem, and he said, I see the problem. You don't know the format, or if you will, what you should do first. He said, you have to know the steps. You have to do everything in parentheses first. He said, you have to go from left to right. You gotta finish the parentheses out first. And then, and so I said, And so he said, this is what you do. And you do this every time. And so my microbiology instructor was correct. I didn't learn that format someplace along the line. And so that made sense to me. And so once I learned that this is the way I needed to solve the problem, to start the problem, solve the problem, algebra was my best friend. So I love algebra. And I went through algebra, got an A in algebra, went through calculus, went through statistics. Statistics is one of my favorite, where people struggle with statistics. I love statistics. It was not a problem for me. And so I say all that to say that could have been a deterrent. And I could have said, I'm not doing this. This technology for me. This is not for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go into some other field. And that was my passion, and that's what I wanted to do. So I would have left that, right? Because of the math, because I was the only woman. We all struggle with that today because they look like at you like you are from Mars. The guys look at you like you're from Mars. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here, And so you didn't have that camaraderie, that networking with them. You had to really kind of work on your own and get it yourself and do it yourself kind of thing. So, and in some ways, that's still happening to today, but not as much. I don't think women feel as isolated as they did 10, 20 years ago in STEM fields. And because I've had those experiences, I am able to um, recognize those in my classroom today, and I try to help other women in the class break through that. that kind of feeling isolated. So I say things like, "Oh, it's women power. I have two women in the class. We have women power now, guys." We're and so you get the laughs, right, and you break some of that up, and putting people in groups and things like that. I think really helps. And so um, that's my story. So I was able to. I mean, I had hurdles. I definitely had hurdles, but I was able to have faculty, staff, and others students help me through those, and I got through those, and I started with community college, and then I went from community college to Marygrove College, like most of our students today. And so because I went to community college because I love computers, and I like the business field, and so I had to figure out what I wanted to do there. So I did 2 years at the community college, transferred to the university, did 2 years there, and then went on to get my master's. And from there, I went on to get a PhD. In between getting married, having kids, and all of that kind of stuff, too, along the path. So my path wasn't so straight; it was a little crooked.
Yeah.
But I say that to say, anyone, my story could be your story, right? And many of us have a lot of the similar stories, but know that your path may not always be straight, it may be crooked, but it doesn't matter as long as your goal, you keep that goal, you keep your eyes on your goal, and even if it's zigzag, you can reach that goal.
Deanne, what I heard from you was get a mentor.
Yes.
What I heard from you was break the problem down into steps, and also, I think, persistence. Would that be a good summary?
I think you're correct. Persistence. Break a problem down, get help, seek assistance. Foresight Tech has a lot of assistance for students. Sometimes it's underutilized, but I always tell students if I'm willing to help, but get someone else to help. Get a mentor, get a friend, someone you trust, and someone's not going to look down on you, but say, "Hey, I see these great skills in you. So all you need to do is stay on that road, stay on your goal, and get the help you need along the way." There's no shame in that.
Right. Deanne, thank you for being so open with us with respect to your own personal background. I think it's so helpful for young people coming up and people who actually are retraining too, right? So
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about your program. It's a, to the best of my knowledge, because I'm on your advisory committee, but I believe it's a nationally recognized program. Um, and I know that just from the meetings that we've had together with your advisory committee, which is a great one, you have people representing the state for cyber on your advisory committee. Tell us about the program.
Absolutely. Russ, I want to say and today it's not about if you'll be hacked, it's when you'll be hacked. So that being said, our cyber programs, we have two cyber programs. We have, under the cyber umbrella, we have IT system security program. That program is designated by the National Security Agency. It is a very rigorous program. Um, we had to go through a lot to get it designated by the NSA. And students that's interested in that program, they are learning how to build a network, a local area network, as well as a wide area network, then applying security to that network. Those students are usually going to work as IT administrators, as IT managers, where they can build and secure networks and work with corporate or small business, right? And so they're going to configure routers and switches, put that on the network, apply some wireless to that as well, right? And then secure all of that to make sure packets traverse the network correctly. Um, you're not getting any hacks, ransomware, that type of thing. Our other program is our cybersecurity program, and that program teaches individuals to work with government agency, veterans, and it's based in cybercrime. So it's internet based. Anything that touches in the internet, digital, you're securing that, right? And so you're usually working with the forensics unit, the cybercrime unit, those type of things. But there is very, it's a broad line of titles that you can have under either of those cyber programs. They're both very lucrative, and students here for SciTech have a wonderful opportunity. There is scholarship programs for them, very specific programs, um, internships, job shadowing. We have all that available for those students at Foresight Tech, and those in the community that want to become cyber warriors, as I call them.
Dan, that is so cool. Um, I want to ask you a question now. You said that you can't go anywhere without with data anymore without it being hacked and so forth. So this brings me to a question. You and I have just done a grant recently,
Yes.
and we call that grant Cyber Biosecurity. You know, I know what my thinking was behind that, so I'm going to tell you my thinking. My thinking was that there's so much data that's being accumulated for either the submission of drugs, like of new drugs. It requires tons and tons of documentation, and that documentation has to be done. And you mentioned it earlier today before we actually had the interview about the security of that data. So I would like your perspective on our new cyber biosecurity grant.
Well, Russ, I'm so excited about our cybersecurity grant collaboration. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful collaboration, and we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to do a lot with data. So when we talk about data and securing data, it's so very important to our medical records, right? We always talk about medical records, but we devices, hard devices, pumps, medical devices, um, records, health cards. So that data that we have, data with our social security numbers, our home addresses, ooh, our Blue Cross and Blue Shield cards, our medical records card, all of that are, when we talk about data, encompasses all of that. And so how are we going to secure it? Is that data going to be traverse the network? Is it going to be open? Is it going to be encrypted? If it's going to be encrypted, how will it be encrypted? How many times will we encrypt that data? Um, and then once we encrypt the data, uh, what software package will we use to do that? What's the best way to do that? Um, and so we have to think about that. Um, and I think that's going to be very important in the work we'll be doing going forward. How are we going to encrypt the data? How are we going to secure it together? Where will it be stored? Who would I have access to that data? Will there be any type of chain of custody on the back end of that? Electronic, bio, um, biometrics, if you will. How will we do that?
Deanne, it's interesting because when we've done tours of companies, of bio companies, and we've gone in to see these people and see how they manufacture, it's not people twisting valves anymore. It's people actually have screens in front of them, and they're able to control what their processes that they're controlling by the simple touching of a screen. You want to speak to that?
Yeah. So that's the way we're going. Whether you're in manufacturing, you're not going to see buttons push. You're going to see everybody with a computer screen. The doctors have a computer, a tablet to um, um, allow us access to certain things, to take our temperatures and to check our medical records. Manufacturing has a screen. Those students are learning how to work with technologies. They have a tablet. They didn't want to. They had to come kicking and screaming, but they're there. And so everything they're controlling, all the machinery is with that screen. Okay. And so our industry, all of the industrial technology with a screen, technologists like myself, we carry a screen to check on data. Our book manufacturers have a screen where they're checking books to see what's in stock, what's out of stock, what we currently use, what we should be using. Everybody has a screen, you know? And so even with growing and our farmers, everything's connected. Their technology is connected to a screen, right? How we milk our cows are connected to a screen now, right? I saw that just last week. I'm like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
And so all have to be used to using this technology. We have to be trained to use the technology, and the technology has to be available for us to learn and for students to learn to be able to get these type of careers. If we do not have this technology available for our communities, for our students to learn, they will be left behind.
Deanne, you know, we have our biomedical emerging technology grant, which you're an advisor to, a guest
Yes,
advisor to. And you know, you mentioned the medical device aspect, and I think that's a very, very significant one. I can tell you that I myself am in a clinical trial for a COVID vaccine, and I can tell you that I have an app,
yeah,
and my app basically has my information in it. And so every month or every 3 weeks, when I go in for my visits after I've had my vaccines, they'll ask me questions, but I don't do it physically in person all the time. When I'm not in person, they're actually having me do it through my app. I think that that's really cool. But I think that that speaks to the security aspect of what we're talking about. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think even all we have so many apps now. We have apps that tell us how many students have flus in what areas, how many has have colds in what area. And so you can download that app. That's free. So if you're in your neighborhood, if you want to know if a flu is raging in your neighborhood in your school district, you go to that. You find out these things. And so we have progressed so much in the last 10 years. And so that's why technology, I learned my craft years ago, but I've been honing my craft ever since because you have to keep up with the technology. The things we have today, I didn't learn them back, 10, 20 years ago. You learned the basics of everything, but then you had to learn along the way. So even though I have a PhD, I have so many certifications, and I take training classes, PhD classes all year long. And when I'm really interested in a subject, I go learn about that subject. So we are continuous learners. We are lifelong learners if you're in any STEM field. So I say to all students that's going to view this, potential students, know that when you're in a STEM field, you never stop learning. And if you have that passion, it's not like hard learning, it's like fun learning because you get to use, I call them toys. You have new toys all the time to learn about. And so know that this is lifelong and you'll never get finished and you'll never finish learning because technology is changing every day.
Deanne, I think we're ready to wrap up this wonderful conversation that we've had with you today. I want to thank you on behalf of SciTech and on behalf of our National Center for the Biotechnology Workforce for stepping across into our world. You know, this is really cool. But
It
on the other
is.
hand, we've stepped into your world and we'll be working together on cyber biosecurity. I want to thank Sean for recording today and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Russ, for having me. I just want to leave by saying we will defend today and we're going to secure tomorrow.